Good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Nothing But Sports with Kent Sterling for Friday, August 2nd, 2019. Brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Call Mike O'Neill. Make him your new dentist. 317-849-2933. Big day in sports. Cubs underway at Wrigley Field. It's good to see them at home. They have the second best home record in the National League. They have the absolute worst road record by winning percentage in the National League. Good to see him at the friendly confines today. Let's get some wins against the Milwaukee Brewers. Speaking of the Cubs, we welcome to the program, as we do many Fridays, the great Harry, who's going to ask me some questions. Welcome.
I appreciate your sincere welcome, Ganilrith. Happy Friday to you. A beautiful day in central Indiana. All right, number one. Can Indiana football go to I just read ahead. Can Indiana football go to a bowl this season?
Well, you need 6 wins, Harry, and to get to 6 wins, the Hoosiers are going to have to beat some teams that maybe on paper they really shouldn't beat. I think that's going to have to happen, or they wind up being 5-7 for the third straight year. This is Tom Allen's third year as the head coach of the Hoosiers, but this will be his first year not also being the defensive coordinator. He's turned the keys over to Kane Womack. He's going to be the coordinator, and I think that that's a good move. I think the head coach has got to be the CEO of the program, and if you're doing day-to-day stuff like being a defensive coordinator, I don't think that bodes well necessarily, and I like Kane Womack a lot. I spent some time with him yesterday, and I dig the guy. The Hoosiers, they've got some weapons. Stevie Scott in the backfield. Peyton Hendershot at tight end. You've got Donovan Hale. You've got Westbrook at wide receiver. You've got an experienced offensive line, and then on the defensive side of the ball, you got some playmakers, some game records, right? Guys like Marcelino Ball. So can they get to 6 wins? Let's take a little bit of a look at the schedule. On the road, they've got Michigan State. That's a loss. They've got Maryland. That's one that you've got to win. Nebraska, that might be a loss. Penn State, Purdue, probable losses. So if you go 1-4 on the road in the Big Ten, that would not be an entirely bad thing. So that's one win. Let's say that's one win. Then at home, you've got Ohio State. That's a loss. Rutgers, that better be a win. If you don't beat Rutgers at home, you're going to have a tough time getting to 6 wins. You've got Michigan, Northwestern. Maybe you win one of those games. Maybe you beat Northwestern. You've got UConn and Eastern Illinois, and then you've got Ball State in the opener at the end of the month on August 31st at Lucas Oil Stadium. You have to beat Ball State. You have to beat Eastern Illinois. You have to beat UConn. You have to beat Rutgers. And then you got to cobble together 2 other wins among those remaining 8 games. Man, it shouldn't be that hard winning 3 Big Ten games, but I'll tell you what, if you think that Ball State's going to be a cakewalk at Lucas Oil Stadium, you're out of your mind. And if you don't win that game, it's all over. Bowl hopes could end for the Hoosiers on August 31st. But if they don't, by the Rutgers game, Indiana's got 4 wins, then you look at the rest of the schedule and you say, all right, you know what? Maybe we can figure this thing out if they stay healthy. I don't know. You know what? We do this kind of math every single season. Every once in a while, it pays dividends. The last 2 years, Kevin Wilson was here. We had 1 year back in the aughts, back in the 2000s, where Bill Lynch got the Hoosiers to a bowl. Other than that, it really has been a long stretch of mediocrity. And Lynch's season, they won 7 games. Other than that, the Hoosiers have not won 7 games going all the way back to 1994. So winning 6, going to a bowl and winning, you know what? The odds, it would seem, would be against it.
I'll tell you, they sure as hell aren't going to beat Ohio State. They haven't beaten Ohio State since the Buckeye bulldozer Joe Stasiak played left tackle for the Buckeyes. I don't think it's going to be this year. I don't care who the coach is. Number 2, are the Indianapolis Colts legit Super Bowl contenders?
If Andrew Luck is healthy, I think that they are. If they maintain health, I think that they are. The Indianapolis Colts, I think, are getting to the point where they're stacked almost everywhere. Cut day is going to be really interesting because the Indianapolis Colts are finally, for the first time in forever, going to be good enough that they cut guys that other teams are covetous of. They are deep. They are talented on the defensive side of the ball. They are young, fast, long. They are playmakers, and I think their defense is going to be one of the strengths of the team. But then you look at the offense and you say, holy hell, look at that side of the ball. If you've got Andrew Luck healthy and Marlon Mack healthy at tailback, you've got an offensive line, the five across, same five guys that played last year at tight end. You may have to cut Travis. And nobody wants to cut Travis with the Indianapolis Colts. You've got guys like Eric Ebron, of course. You've got Jack Doyle. You've got Mo Ali Cox. And then you've got Travis at wideout. You've got Hilton. You've got Funchess. You've got Paris Campbell. You've got Nyheim Hines as a guy who can line up almost anywhere on the field. This is a dynamic offense, and I think the defense is going to be dynamic too. And the special teams are going to be a strength with this team. Adam Vinatieri, Rigoberto Sanchez, absolutely terrific. The return game, I have no idea. Do you put Paris Campbell back there? Do you put Chester Rogers back there returning punts? Who returns kicks? Who cares? Because 70% of them are going to be touchbacks anyway. I think the Indianapolis Colts check a lot of boxes, and that defense that is young, it is nasty, it's fast, it's long. They're going to make plays. They're going to force turnovers. I think that you're going to see the Indianapolis Colts sort of rise up as a championship contending football team. I don't think there's any doubt about that as long as they stay healthy.
It's always about health. In the NFL, let's go straight to number 3. Was Joe Maddon, the Cubs manager, right to chastise fans for being critical of his bullpen moves?
Yeah, that was Joe Maddon at his absolute arrogant worst. Joe Maddon thinks he's a calculus teacher. He's not. He's a baseball manager, okay? This is about guys going out there with sticks and balls and mitts and going and playing a kid's game. And I know that math comes into play. I know there are analytics that are really, really important, and you can dig into them all you want, and you can say that, you know what, Matt, this matchup against this guy, that's going to bear fruit for us, and we're playing the odds at every turn. But at the end of the day, these guys are human beings. They are baseball players, and when you manage by analytics, I think you start to lose guys. And I heard this last night. John Lester, in his postgame interview after his loss that he suffered, and it wasn't necessarily his fault. The offense was pathetic. But he was asked about Joe Maddon and his use of the bullpen. He didn't say Joe, and he didn't say Maddon. He said the manager. He referred to Joe Maddon in the third person by his title, not by his name. I don't think that connotes respect. I think that he's lost this clubhouse, and I think that's the problem with this team. Right now, they're 57-51. They're a game back in the National League Central. Joe Maddon was a guy who in 2015 really brought a winning attitude and an intellect to the Chicago Cubs that they had not had. But what you've got now are kind of the last sort of remnants of that intellect and the remnants of the joy that he brought to that clubhouse. You can only ask your players to wear pajamas or Halloween costumes or superhero costumes on road trips so often before finally they're like, what are we doing? Why am I wearing pajamas again? I'm a 35-year-old starting pitcher who's making $20 million a year or more, and I'm wearing pajamas on the team plane? What the hell's going on around here? You can only make players ask themselves those questions for so long before they start to question whether you're out of your damn mind. And I think that the Chicago Cubs think that Joe Maddon, while in the beginning, very effective as a leader, I think lately, not so much, and I think he's part of the problem and not part of the solution. I think this is his last year as the manager of the Chicago Cubs. I think the Cubs are going to make a change, and I think that they should. This team is not playing with any joy, and I think that's part of the manager's responsibility to figure out exactly how to communicate that baseball is supposed to be fun and show guys that it's about competing day in and day out and not showing up for work on the road like you had 18 beers last night and you'd rather be taking a nap than playing.
I think Joe Maddon feels like he's a calculus professor, but he's got a basic math brain. That's my take now that I'm out of the broadcast booth. Number 4, will Carmelo Anthony play in the NBA this season? as he told ESPN he thinks he wants to.
You know, I don't know. I saw the interview. I saw the highlights of him knocking down shots and dunking the basketball against a couple of sad sacks. You know what? Carmelo Anthony, how many times does he need to be told that he is unwanted in the NBA before he decides, you know what, I got all the money I'm ever going to need, so I'm just going to enjoy myself for the rest of my life? Carmelo Anthony stopped being a functional NBA basketball player a long time ago. He didn't make the Rockets better. He didn't make the Thunder better. He didn't make the Knicks better. If he did make the Knicks better, it sure as hell wasn't good enough because he didn't make the playoffs the last 3 years that he played for him at least. This is the time for a guy like Carmelo Anthony to say adios. I'm all done. The game has passed me by. I am no longer a guy who can bring wins with his presence to a franchise. Carmelo Anthony is one of those guys. He's one of those guys where, you know what, it's time for him to go away. He doesn't know it. He's got to go on First Take. He's got to say to Stephen A. Smith or whomever, you know what, I'm still there. I still got game. No, you don't. All people have to do is watch. Do you think the coaches who decided not to play you with the Thunder and the Rockets the last 2 years, do you think that they did that to spite you? Or do you think they did that because they believed that you couldn't help them win? That's why it was. You couldn't help them win, and so they sat your ass, you didn't like it, and you wound up leaving. Now you want to come back, and I'll tell you what else. There's some guys who could come back and be a shell of their former selves, and people would still pay to see them because there was an affinity for those players. That's not the case with Carmelo Anthony. Nobody cares. Nobody wants to see you play. Nobody's going to pay to see you play. Nobody's going to buy your jerseys. So it's time for you to fade into that oblivion. The good night has come, and it's time for you to recognize it and finally hang up your sneakers.
Yeah, Carmelo's like that corpse who still believes he's living, right? You know, everybody knows he's dead, but nobody's told the corpse. Number 5. Purdue gave AD Mike Bobinski a 3-year extension and bumped his pay to $750,000. Wow, that's a lot of money for an athletic director. Was this smart of Purdue?
Yeah, I think Mike Bobinski was a great hire when Purdue brought him in from Georgia Tech to become their next athletic director following Morgan Burke. I think he's going to retire as Purdue's athletic director because Purdue, they hire good guys and they let them do their jobs. They are a smart university. Mitch Daniels, a really, really smart president. And so they were absolutely right to give Mike Bobinski another $100,000 a year. That's fine. $750 is a nice amount of money for an athletic director. Bobinski has done a terrific job holding on to Braum to run the football program. Tennessee came after him. Louisville came after him. That's his alma mater, for God's sake, his dream job. And still, Bobinski, it didn't give Braum any reason to look elsewhere or any reason to think that the grass was greener someplace else. They made the grass plenty green at Purdue, and so Braum's going to stay. Matt Painter, he has won 2 Big Ten championships in a row. This is an athletic department that's getting better and better and better and better, and it reflects the intellect again, the intellect and the capable leadership of the president of the university, and that's Mitch Daniels. It all starts at the top. Mitch Daniels hired Mike Bobinski along with the board of trustees, and Mike Bobinski has done a good job. They recognize he's doing a good job, and so they've decided to give him a 3-year extension and retain him. That is the way Purdue does stuff. That's why their athletic department is what it is. And I'll tell you what, you know what? You look at Indiana. We compare Indiana and Purdue all the time. You have a very capable leader in Mitch Daniels, right? I think Indiana's got a very capable athletic director in Fred Glass. But I think that the problem for Indiana athletics is on top of Fred Glass, is above Fred Glass's pay grade. And you look at the difference between those 2 universities and the 2 universities' athletic departments, and you say Daniels versus McRobbie, absolutely advantage Boilermakers. That's Sports Nothing But Sports for a beautiful Friday. Thanks for joining me, Harry.
Thanks for having me, Ganilrez. Time to hit Wolfie's at Geist for a delicious cocktail out on the lake and then a night of debauchery with the lovely Dutchie. Have a good one.
All right, tell you what, Breakfast with Kent, Monday morning, 8 o'clock, Facebook Live, 8:15, Periscope Live. A show so nice we do it twice. And, of course, Sports Nothing But Sports every weekday afternoon, posting by 3 on SoundCloud, on iTunes, and, of course, on thegruelingtruth.net. We'll be at Colts camp on Monday. Can't wait to talk to you then. Join me.